My family thought it'd be hilarious to leave me stranded at a bus station 6 hours away from home. They expected me to beg, cry, and come crawling back. I didn't. I never went back. And what I did next, it changed everything. If you've ever been hurt by the people who were supposed to love you, then maybe my story will mean something. And if it does, hit that subscribe button, give it a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I was 18 when it happened. My name's Jessica Monroe. People call me Jess. I grew up in a house where I always felt like a guest no one wanted. My mom, Tanya, married Mark when I was 10. After that, it was like I stopped existing. Mark had 2 kids, Ethan and Brianna. They were loud, spoiled, and cruel in quiet ways. They'd take my things, lie about me, whisper jokes behind my back. But it wasn't just them. Tanya changed too. She stopped hugging me. She stopped listening. If something went wrong, it was my fault. If Ethan got caught stealing, somehow I was blamed. If Brianna failed a test, Tanya said I must have distracted her. Mark would laugh and say I was too sensitive, and Tanya always nodded like she agreed. Then came the weekend trip. They said it was a family getaway, one last trip before I turned 19. I knew better. I packed light and kept my mouth shut. 6 hours later, at some rundown Greyhound station with flickering lights and no heat, they handed me a $20 bill and said, "Figure it out, Jess. Consider this a life lesson." Then they drove away. I stood there in the cold, holding my bag and the crumpled bill, watching the taillights disappear. At first, I felt nothing. Not fear, not anger, just this empty, sinking silence inside me. They thought I'd call, that I'd panic and cry and beg them to come back. But I didn't. I walked to the vending machine, bought a bottle of water, and sat down on a cracked plastic bench. I looked around at the peeling posters, the broken payphone, the tired faces of strangers, and I made a decision. I wasn't going back. Not to that house, not to that life. If they wanted me gone, then fine. I would disappear. But not because I was weak, because I was done. You wanted me gone. Let's see how you like what comes next. The first night alone was the hardest. I didn't know where to go. The bus station was closing down, and I had no money for a ticket. I wandered the streets until I saw a gas station with a sign that said, "Open 24 hours." I walked in and pretended to browse the snacks, hoping no one would notice how lost I looked. The clerk behind the counter gave me a strange look, so I slipped into the bathroom and locked the door. That's where I spent the night, on the cold tile floor, curled up next to a mop bucket. Every sound outside made me flinch. I was scared someone would knock or yell or drag me out, but no one did. The world just kept moving without me. In the morning, I splashed water on my face and tried to make myself look normal. My stomach growled so loud it echoed off the walls. When I finally opened the door, there was a woman sweeping near the coffee machine. She looked about 50, with tired eyes and a name tag that said Paula. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a plastic bag with a sandwich, a juice box, and a pair of socks. "Eat," she said. "Then come sit a minute." I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I ate slowly while she cleaned, and then she asked if I needed help. I didn't tell her everything, just that I couldn't go home. She nodded like she understood. That afternoon, a customer in scrubs overheard us talking. She said she was headed to Little Rock for a few days and could give me a lift if I wanted. I took the chance. The nurse dropped me off near a row of old shops and diners. I wandered until I saw a help wanted sign taped to a window. It was a greasy little 24-hour place called Hank's Diner, and behind the counter was a woman with short gray hair and a sharp glare. Her name was Norma. She didn't smile, didn't ask much. Just looked me up and down and said, "You got shoes that don't slip?" I nodded, even though I didn't. "Then you're hired. Don't steal, don't whine, and show up on time." I said okay. I meant it. That's where it started. Me working the graveyard shift, cleaning tables and pouring coffee for truckers and night owls. I slept in a storage room Norma didn't ask about. I saved every dollar I could. I told myself one thing every night: never again. Never need anyone again. At first, I just wanted to survive. But something shifted the longer I stayed in Little Rock. The longer I worked at the diner, the stronger I felt, like the old version of me was slowly peeling away, layer by layer. I used to be the girl who let people hurt her. I remembered being 12, standing in the kitchen while Tanya screamed at me for using the good towel. Brianna had left it on the floor. I said so. Tanya didn't even look at her. She slapped the counter and told me, "Stop blaming your sibling. You're not perfect either." I remembered being 16 and Ethan crashing my bike, then blaming me for leaving it out. Mark laughed. Tanya grounded me. They always protected their own. I was just extra. But that girl, the one who stood there taking it, she didn't live here anymore. At the diner, Norma wasn't warm, but she was fair. She didn't care about my past, only whether I could keep up. Over time, she started trusting me with things: inventory, keys, money run. That meant something. It felt like being seen. Then there was Carlos, the dishwasher. He was about my age, quiet, soft-spoken, but always watching. One night, when I dropped a tray of plates and broke half of them, I crouched down, waiting for Norma to yell. But Carlos just helped me clean up and whispered, "Don't worry. She'll just take it out of your soul." He made me laugh. The first real laugh I'd had in months. Little by little, we became friends. We'd sit on milk crates behind the diner during breaks, swapping stories. He told me he was saving up to bring his mom over from El Salvador. I told him pieces of my story, never the whole thing. One day he said, "You don't talk like someone who's lost. You talk like someone who's still figuring out what kind of fire to be." That stuck with me. I started attending GED night classes twice a week. I'd work a morning shift, go to class, then come back for the night shift. Norma acted like she didn't care, but she always made sure my class nights were lighter. I knew she was rooting for me in her own way. I cut my hair short, bought a pair of boots that made me feel taller. I stopped saying sorry every time I opened my mouth. And late at night, when the diner was quiet and Carlos was washing up, I'd sit in the back with a notebook I never let anyone see. In it, I wrote everything. I didn't write about revenge. I didn't care about making them cry or beg. That wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wrote, "I don't want revenge. I want power." And for the first time, I started to believe I could have it. 2 years can change everything. I wasn't the same girl who once cried on the floor of a gas station bathroom. I stood taller now. I walked into rooms like I belonged there. I spoke without waiting for permission. At 20, I was the night shift manager at the diner. Norma handed me the title one morning over burnt toast and black coffee. "You earned it," she said. "You don't scare easy. That counts for something." Carlos was still there too. We were like family now, the kind you choose, not the kind you're stuck with. But I wanted more than just waiting tables and managing night shifts. I'd always liked rearranging things, spaces, furniture, colors. So I started offering home staging on the side. Cheap rates, Craigslist ads, cash only. My first job was a tiny 2-bedroom with mold in the corner. I cleaned it up, painted the trim, borrowed furniture from a thrift store, and made it shine. The landlord paid me in full and asked for my card. I didn't even have one yet. That's when I realized I could do this. I could build something of my own. One night, I got curious. Not sad, not angry, just curious. I wanted to know what had happened to the house I grew up in. I hadn't thought about it in a while, but suddenly it felt important. I searched the address. It was foreclosed last year. The photo online showed the windows boarded up and a dead lawn. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I called a private investigator named Sierra, who'd left her card in the diner months ago after a late-night meal. I asked her to find out what happened to my family. Just names, jobs, places. No contact. 2 weeks later, she sent me a file. Tanya was bouncing between temporary housing. Ethan got fired from a security job for stealing equipment. Brianna dropped out of college and hadn't re-enrolled anywhere. They were still together, still acting like a family, just without the house or money. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I just felt clear. They never thought I'd survive without them. They thought I'd fall apart, come crawling back. Instead, I became someone they wouldn't even recognize if I walked right past them. Someone calm. Someone in control. Someone free. I didn't rush into it. I waited. 6 months after I found out my childhood home was foreclosed, it went up for auction again. No one wanted it. Too much water damage, a cracked foundation, old wiring. But I did. I bought it under a shell company I set up through a lawyer a customer at the diner recommended. No one could trace it back to me. When the papers came through, I drove out there one afternoon and parked across the street. The neighborhood had gone downhill. Faded paint, patchy grass, broken porch lights. But the house was still there. Ugly, empty, and quiet. My name was never on the deed when I lived there. Now it was just hidden under layers of paperwork and fake names. I didn't fix anything. I let the place sit, boarded up and hollow. I didn't mow the lawn. I didn't repaint. I didn't touch a single shingle. Let the neighbors complain. Let the city call it an eyesore. I knew exactly what I was doing. I found out where Tanya and the others were staying, a cramped, roachy rental on the edge of town. I mailed them an envelope. No return address. Inside was a photo of the house, taken at night, with a sticky note across the top that said, "Looks familiar?" No name. No explanation. Just that. A few weeks later, I slipped another note into their mailbox. Just a piece of paper that said "Still watching." Typed, not handwritten. It wasn't about scaring them. It wasn't about threats. It was about that slow, gnawing feeling they couldn't shake off. That maybe someone was watching. That maybe the past wasn't done with them. That maybe the daughter they threw away wasn't gone after all. I never showed my face. Never signed anything. I let the silence do the work. Let the house rot where it stood. A reminder of everything they lost and everything I took back without ever needing to speak to them again. Sometimes revenge doesn't look like shouting. It doesn't need fire or screaming or slammed doors. Sometimes it's just a locked house and a quiet girl who learned how to play the long game. They never knew it was me. That was the best part. I didn't show up at their door or scream in their faces. I didn't need to. I became a ghost, silent patient, everywhere they didn't expect. Ethan got a job at a shipping warehouse. I heard about it through Sierra, the PI. She kept tabs for me, quiet, clean, no mess. I found out the manager was sloppy with background checks, so I paid someone to send an anonymous tip Ethan had stolen from his last employer. He hadn't. Not this time. But the company didn't want risk. He was let go within days. No one said why. No one needed to. Tanya was staying at a shelter run by a church downtown. She didn't have much left, not even pride. I made a small donation through Zelle, just enough to cover a few nights. I used my initials, JM. That way, if she saw the receipt, if someone mentioned the name, she'd wonder. She'd doubt. She'd feel that itch in the back of her head. Could it be? Brianna was the easiest. She applied for an internship with a design brand I'd started quietly last year. It had taken off fast, word of mouth, social media, a couple lucky clients. She didn't know I was behind it. She walked into the interview wearing borrowed confidence and a fake smile. I watched her on the security camera from another room. She looked older, harsher. The world had chipped away at her too. She didn't recognize the receptionist, didn't know the voice behind the email was mine. After the interview, I typed up the rejection letter myself. I kept it short. Thank you for your time. Unfortunately, we've decided to move forward with other candidates. Your interview reminded me of someone who left me behind. Best of luck. No name. No signature. I imagined her staring at the screen, rereading that line over and over, feeling her stomach twist. She'd never be sure, and that was the point. I wasn't looking for apologies. I didn't want them crawling back, begging to be forgiven. I just wanted to exist in the corners of their lives, the unshakable feeling that something was there. Watching. Waiting. Too quiet to ignore. They made me feel invisible for years. Now I made sure they couldn't forget me, even if they never saw my face again. The footage came on a Tuesday. Sierra dropped it off in a plain manila envelope. No words, no comment. Just a flash drive and a single sticky note. Thought you'd want to see this one. I waited until midnight, after the diner closed. I sat at the back booth, where the light was soft and the world felt far away, and plugged it into my laptop. The video opened on a rundown motel room. Yellow walls, stained carpet, the kind of place you pay for by the week. Tanya sat on the edge of the bed, hunched over a microwavable tray of something brown and soggy. Her hair was thinner now, pulled back into a limp ponytail. She looked smaller. Not in size, just reduced. Dimmer than I remembered. On the little motel TV, a VHS tape was playing, some home video from years ago. I recognized it instantly. Christmas. I was 8, wearing a red sweater 2 sizes too big, opening a board game I never got to play because Ethan broke it that night. The camera had been in Tanya's hand. She'd panned past me without even pausing, zooming in on Brianna laughing in the corner. Now, in this tiny motel room, she watched it on loop. Fork paused in midair, tears running down her cheeks. She didn't sob. It was the kind of crying that sneaks out when you're too tired to fight it. I watched her for 15 minutes. I kept waiting for something to rise in me. Anger, triumph, grief. But nothing came. She looked like a stranger. Just another sad woman in a sad room, missing something she didn't deserve. I closed the laptop and sat in silence. Not heavy silence, not choking. Just quiet, like dust settling in an empty room. That night, I wrote one last letter. No return address. No name. Tanya, you don't have to worry about me. I turned out just fine. Better than fine, actually. I don't need anything from you. Not your apology. Not your guilt. Not even your memory. Whatever you lost, you threw it away with your own hand. Don't look for it now. Jay. I mailed it the next morning. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't forgiveness either. It was the final stone laid over the grave of everything I used to carry. I didn't need her to hurt. I just didn't care anymore. It was bound to happen sooner or later. The more I built, the harder I became to ignore. My initials, JM, started showing up in places Tanya couldn't avoid. On the donation at the shelter. On the design brand Brianna failed to join. On a small community award posted in a local paper that somehow found its way to her hands. Sierra told me Tanya had started asking questions. Not bold ones. Careful ones. Quiet ones. The kind of questions people ask when they already suspect the answer, but don't want to face it. She even reached out to Mrs. Klein, our old neighbor. Left a note in her mailbox asking if she'd heard from me. Said she just wanted to make sure I was okay. Mrs. Klein didn't respond. She handed the note straight to Sierra, who passed it along to me. I smiled, folded it up, and tossed it in the trash. Some bridges don't need burning. They just rot until they fall on their own. A week later, I saw Brianna in a cafe downtown. She was sitting by the window, earbuds in, scrolling through her phone. She looked different, less polished, more tired. Her purse was off-brand, her nails chipped. She ordered something cheap and sat alone, chewing with her head down. She didn't see me. I stood a few feet away, watching her through the reflection in the glass. For a moment, I wondered what she'd do if she looked up. Would she recognize me? Say my name? Pretend it never happened? But she didn't look up, and I didn't speak. Instead, I walked to the counter, asked for a pen, and grabbed a napkin. I wrote, "I forgave you, but I don't miss you." Then I folded it once, neat and square, and dropped it on her table as I walked past. Not fast, not slow, just enough that she wouldn't notice until I was gone. I didn't wait for a reaction. I didn't need to see her read it. They finally knew I was alive. They finally knew I wasn't broken or lost or hiding. I was right there, in the open, thriving, untouchable. They couldn't take credit for me, couldn't rewrite the story, couldn't erase what they'd done. I was real. I was here. And I didn't need a single one of them to say my name. I used to think I wanted revenge, that if I hurt them the way they hurt me, I'd feel better, like it would fix something. But I was wrong. I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted to matter. I wanted to prove I wasn't the extra piece they could throw away. I wanted to be more than the girl they left behind at a bus station like she was nothing. Now, I look around at what I've built, and I see it clearly. I matter, and I never needed them to know it for it to be true. Norma called me one afternoon, told me she was retiring. She said it casually, like she wasn't about to break my heart in half. I brought flowers to the diner that night, and we sat at our usual back table long after closing. She lit a cigarette, even though she wasn't supposed to, and said, "You know, Jess, I've had a lot of girls work here. Most of them come and go. But you? You're different. You came in quiet and left strong. You're the daughter I never had." I didn't cry. I just nodded and reached across the table to squeeze her hand. She didn't say it to be sweet. Norma didn't do sweet. She said it because she meant it. A few weeks later, I helped Carlos buy his first house. He'd saved for years, but I chipped in the rest and signed as his co-signer. He didn't ask me to. I just showed him the papers and said, "Let's go see your place." He stared at me like I'd handed him the sun. "Jess," he whispered, "why would you do that for me?" I shrugged. "Because you never made me feel small. Because you're my family." That night, we sat on the floor of his empty living room, eating pizza from the box and laughing like kids. After that, I packed a bag and booked a one-way ticket. No big plan. Just a list of places I'd always wanted to see. Seattle, Santa Fe, maybe even somewhere overseas. I'd earned the freedom to go wherever I wanted, and more than that, I wasn't scared anymore. No one owned me. No one could leave me behind again. I wasn't running from anything. I was running toward the life I chose. For the first time since I was 18, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything to anyone. I was enough. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to matter. And now I do. There was a time when I replayed every word they said to me. Every insult, every cold look, every moment I felt invisible. I thought healing would come when they finally saw what they'd done, when they hurt the way I did. But that's not how it works. Healing snuck in quietly, on slow mornings, good coffee, and peaceful silence. It showed up in soft friendships and honest laughter. It lived in the spaces I built for myself, far from the noise of their opinions. I don't hate them anymore. I just don't care. That might sound cold, but it's not. It's calm. It's freedom. I changed my name legally last month. My ID now says Jessica Ray Martin. No traces left of the girl they used to kick around. It felt symbolic, like shutting the door on a house that no longer stands. No one owns my story anymore, but me. They might still wonder where I am, if I'm okay, if I think about them. Maybe they talk about me like I vanished, like I gave up. That's fine. Let them. Their version of me stopped existing the day they left me at that bus station. I never went back, and I never needed to. My life now is small in the best ways. I wake up when I want. I work on projects I care about. I've learned how to be alone without being lonely. I know who I am without anyone else telling me. Tanya, Mark, Ethan, Brianna. They still live in their own little world, blaming each other, blaming the economy, blaming bad luck. I'm not in their story anymore. They don't get a say in mine. I used to write in a journal every night. Long pages full of anger, questions, grief. But now, I write simple things. What I cooked, what I saw on my walk, a funny thing Carlos texted me. Peace is quieter than I expected. It's not about getting even. It's about getting out. And I did. They can keep wondering where I went, who I became, what I might say if we ever met again. But here's the truth. I won't say anything. They'll never hear from me. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's silence they'll never get to break. What would you have done in Jess's place? Walked away for good, or tried to make them understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear your take. And if you like powerful stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.